and gentlemen, from KZOK 102.5 FM, Mr. Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family. Give it up for Danny! And give it up for Sarah!
Thank you. Hey, I'm Danny from KZOK. This is my partner. Good morning, Sarah.
I can't believe you ran up here.
What?
I can't believe you ran up here.
Well, because
I didn't want to jiggle.
Well, I started doing show business before you were born, and by the way, some of us would have preferred if you jiggled. But if they go, Danny Bonaducci, and you're still back there, people go, oh, he's in jail again, it's not good.
Good point.
So, I'm in fact Danny Bonaducci. This is Sarah Weedy Mornings on KZOK 102.5, and it is our privilege and honor to be up here tonight. Someone I personally am a bond with. My television brother and the person we are going to interview tonight have both been kicked off Celebrity Apprentice. I, for one, am still bitter at Donald Trump, and we'll see if our next guest is here. Ladies and gentlemen, George Takei. George?
I am spent.
You know, I would think I have covered a couple of Comic-Cons in my day, and when I see people running around, especially a guy in your position, because to be honest, I mean, it might exist without you, but it isn't what it is without somebody from Star Trek. And George Takei is in fact Star Trek to a lot of people. Would you agree?
Thank you for saying that, and thank you for that applause, but, you know, I wouldn't be George Takei without all of you. It's your dedication to the show and to all the various generations of Star Trek that's made Star Trek into this incredible 46-year-old phenomenon. So thank you all for all your support and undying love.
Let me just say this, without you, I'd be talking to myself. So now we're all good. Now, George, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to open up the floor to questions. So I'm a bit nervous. It's been a long time since I've been nervous. But you put a microphone in my ear, I'm comfortable.
Yes.
But here's what I want to make sure you do. I'm a huge fan of yours, and I want to make sure not to use up any of the questions that these lovely young people might have for you. But you have been in sci-fi, much like the country song go, I was in the country before country was cool. You were into sci-fi decades before Star Trek, were you not?
Well, to be frank, I read people like Ray Bradbury,
sure,
but I wouldn't say I was into sci-fi.
Then who was it that dubbed the voices in the 50s in Rodan? Oh, yeah, score one for Bonaducci right there.
Yes, I did do the English dubbing on this Japanese movie, Rodan. And then there was another one that...
Big guy Rodan, you guys. I mean, talk about your Comic-Con. This is Captain Kirk with a twinkle in his mother's eye.
And another movie, Japanese sci-fi movie that I dubbed into English, they later called Godzilla. So, in that sense, I was involved with sci-fi back then.
Now, did you actually translate from Japanese into English or just dub?
I did not do the translating. We had writers who did the translating, and we did the dubbing. However, some of the translations that the writers gave us didn't work. It wouldn't fit the lip movement.
Well, can I tell you the truth? That has not changed.
No.
I think saying this a great deal, and it makes it sound a little closer than we actually are. But I'm relatively good friends with Jackie Chan. And this is now 2012, and I'll still see Jackie's movies, and I'll see better than our Kung Fu. So they haven't really jacked up with that kind of dubbing, but now it's 2012. Did you ever suspect that you would still be adored by these, legions of fans? If I'm not mistaken, you have 1.3 million friends on Facebook?
Believe it or not, I still don't believe it. It's amazing. But you know, when I first started with the pilot of Star Trek, we knew we had a quality show. The writing was all there. The ideas were all there. And I was chatting with Jimmy Doohan, and I said, I smell quality with this show. It is going to be a show that we're going to be proud of.
Jimmy Doohan would play Scott.
Jimmy Doohan. But then I added on, I don't think we'll last too long. Good shows don't last on television.
Which would explain why the Partridge Family was on longer than Star Trek.
Yes.
Good shows don't last that long. But it was a brilliant show. Let me ask that, and I think we should turn it right over to the audience. For 46 years of success, wouldn't you have think mathematically you would have had to have bigger success than Star Trek by today's standards? Forget the audience numbers because there's so many channels. But by today's standards, Star Trek was not a hit.
No, it wasn't. At the beginning of each episode, we announced that we were boldly going on a 5-year mission. Well, we met Klingons, we met Andorians, all sorts of adversaries, but we didn't think that those adversaries would overcome us. What we didn't know was that we had adversaries called NBC programming executives. They aborted us after 3 seasons.
So it did run 3 seasons. Can you imagine? We're all here 46 years later for a show I don't think most of us could probably still do dialogue from. And it was only on 3 seasons. We could quote the show, and most of us a little bit better than Shatner. That's just a personal opinion. Don't get upset with me. But, and I'm going to turn it over right over to you. Do you think there's any truth to the curse that nobody that had a fake foreign accent on the show went on to the success of the people who did not have that? Jimmy Doohan, who played Scotty, and the man who played Chekhov, has not had the kind of success that the other characters on Star Trek have had.
Well, particularly Jimmy. He's no longer with us.
That's depending on how you look at things, that's either a big win or a big loss. All right, who's got a question for George Takei? It's fairly dark, so you should make your presence known by screaming, bursting into flames, whatever you like to do.
While we wait for a question, George, how do you feel about the latest Star Trek renditions?
The J.J. Abrams movies, I thought it was a terrific movie. I mean, it really had pace and rhythm and action, you know, and it had to be done with a younger cast. All that running that they did in the corridors of the Enterprise, I can't imagine Bill Shatner running. I mean, I'm terrified of that picture.
Say your business for stun. Ever just let him go. Yes, your question over here.
I have 2 questions regarding allegiance.
Yes.
So first of all, did you...
Where are you?
I'm over here.
Oh, there you are.
Yes. So did you write it? And 2, are you singing in it? If you are, can you sing us something?
Well, it began in a prophetic way. When Brad and I are in New York, we're in the theater almost every night. We are theater buffs. We're dedicated theater buffs. And one night, there are kindred souls here. One night, we got to the theater kind of early. We sat down and we were talking about the play that we had seen the night before. And there were 2 guys sitting in front of us. And one of them recognized my voice. He turned around and said, you're George Takei, aren't you? And we, chit-chatted for a while. And then the play began. And during the intermission, we chatted some more. We thought they were nice guys. They're very friendly. The next night, we went to see In the Heights, a musical about the Puerto Ricans in New York, living in Washington Heights. And we arrived at the theater. This time the theater was fairly full, but again, not in front of us, but in the same row that we were in, were those 2 same guys, about 4 or 5 seats away from us. And these seats were occupied, so we just kind of waved to them. And we said, what a coincidence. You know, same guys, 2 nights in a row. And then the play began. And if you know the play, near the end of the first act, The father has a song called Inuti, or Useless. He wants to do so much for his daughter, but because of the economic conditions and some of the barriers that Puerto Ricans face in New York, he couldn't do all that he wanted to do for the daughter that he loved so much. And he sings this song, Useless. And for some odd reason, that reminded me of the time that we were in the Arkansas internment camp during the Second World War. And it reminded me of my father, who wanted to do so much for us, for the kids, myself, my younger brother, and my baby sister. And it got to me so much that I'm a softie at tearjerkers. I started to cry. And then wouldn't you know, the act would end and the lights would immediately come on blazing and the intermission would start. And I was, wiping my face when the two guys came over to chit-chat, and they saw me, wiping the tears off my face. And he said, why did that song strike you so profoundly? And I told him about the internment camp. And the guy who recognized my voice the night before, an Asian American, Jay Kuo is his name, said, the story of the internment sounds like something that would be important to do as a drama on the stage. And I said, well, I'm planning on writing the last part of the first third of my autobiography as a television drama. He said, no, it'd make a great musical. And it turned out he was a composer lyricist. And so we chatted just briefly during the intermission. And then, the second act began, and we went back to our seats. But after the play, we went out for drinks together. We talked about it some more. And he was very persuasive. It turns out he's a composer lyricist who had a musical on in San Francisco at that time, and we talked about the idea of doing a story on the internment as a musical, and so we decided to meet the following night for dinner instead of going to the theater, and we talked about it some more, and we got really excited about that idea. But those two guys were from San Francisco, we're from Los Angeles. We went back. But I started an email correspondence with Jay, and we sketched out a drama. And then about 2 weeks later, he sent a song over the internet. I mean, I'm of the radio generation, and I'm still astounded by all that can be done online. And the song that he sent over was titled Allegiance, and it was about the father wanting to do so much for his children in an internment camp. And there I was, seated at my computer, bawling away again. And it really affected me. And so from that, we started developing it. And the other guy happens to be a writer as well. And so he and Jay collaborated in the writing. I gave them guidance on the factual stories of the events of the internment. The story is fictional. I was too young to really understand the events as a 5-year-old child.
I just was reading about this because I find the internment camps a very interesting part of American history. But in an article you recently did, you said when I would run off from my camp to use it on the train at night, I thought it was very nice of the soldiers to like my wife. And you had no idea because you were only 5. They were just making sure you didn't escape.
Right.
Now, when you go to talk about, and the question was about a musical George Takei is writing about, called Allegiance, about his youth spent, his very early youth spent in an internment camp. Do you think you can take a topic that is, in my opinion, not only dark, but a fairly shameful time in American history, and make it into a musical and have people standing up and cheer? And the second part of that question is, I just want to tell you this. 2 guys meeting up with 2 guys in a musical theater a couple nights in a row, not big of a coincidence. do you think
I maintain it was prophetic. It was prophecy. Somebody was pulling the strings for us to meet together.
We have more questions on this side of the room.
Well, you asked them something about the dark story.
Yeah, do you think
music.
you can make that into people leaving the theater going, I mean, obviously you can make it into people thinking, that was an amazing night out. The music.
Well, let me cite a few examples. Les Miserables, great Broadway hit, is about the French Revolution. Oppressed people, being subjugated to horrors of the French government and the revolution. That's a dark story. Let me cite another example. Miss Saigon, about the Vietnam War. Let me cite an even darker story. Sweeney Todd, a murderous barber who slits the throat of his customers and then sells the body to his neighbor lady, who's a baker, who bakes the meat of those people into meat pies, and they become very popular in London. They sell like earthly meat pies.
And you guys thought that the one from Hunger Games was going to be the gory battle. All right, now let's go for that question over here. And by the way, a more than sufficient answer on that question. Thank you very much. Question over here, please.
Hi. I was wondering, going back to your Japanese roots, do you ever get to speak Japanese nowadays? Does your husband get to speak Japanese with you?
My husband is terrible with languages.
Yeah.
I sometimes have to teach him some English words.
So you tried to teach him?
I've taught him some Japanese words, and when he's in Japan, he tries to use them, but he always gets into horrible trouble. So what I did was I decided I'm going to teach him a phrase that will already get him into trouble from the beginning. So I taught him the Japanese phrase, boku wa baka. Some of you understand.
For some reason, you told your husband to say that he was stupid.
You understand Japanese too.
私は日本語の悪いバロケ。
わかりますか？素晴らしいですね。すごい。
That's two for the Nucci.
Well, I have a friend of mine who served as the Secretary of Transportation in the Bush administration named Norm Mineta. That's a Japanese name. But people think he's Italian. When the Italian Prime Minister was visiting the White House, Norm got invited to the state dinner, and they thought he was an Italian until he showed up.
We have a question for Mr. Takei over here. Takei, rather, over here.
Takei.
Hello.
But I don't object to Takei, because that's a legitimate Japanese word, if you know.
Yes, it's expensive. I think.
It means expensive. You can call me that anytime, and I'll send you a bill.
I have to. Let's get back to Mr. Takei.
Which doesn't mean cheap either.
So I have been very greatly enjoying your presence on the internet in the last several years. Specifically, much of your work for LGBT rights and calling. I'm never going to get through this sentence. And calling people douchebags who need to be called douchebags. Because let me tell you, just the clip of you saying you're a douchebag gets sent to so many people. But we felt, my boyfriend and I, although we are not GLBT, we are very supportive, we felt that your message of it's okay to be Takei could be said in a more fabulous manner. So to that end, we made you this sash.
You made George Takei a sash?
It says it's okay to be Takei.
Look at this.
Thank you so much.
It's also kind of accidentally in Washington State University colors. The class was magnetic, so you can open it and close it again. Anyway, so if you ever want to come to a Huskies game and be supportive of Takei rights, you're set.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Supportive of Takei rights. There's important and there's really
Well, you
important.
know how this all began.
No, I'm dying to hear.
There is in Tennessee a politician named Stacey Canfield who is, ridiculously homophobic. He introduced a bill which the state senate passed, which criminalizes the use of the word gay by school teachers, of all people. School teachers are the ones that most need words to help young people who are starting to feel certain things in their body and their system. And, they need to be able to give them some counseling and guidance. And the word gay is a necessary word to use. But to criminalize them and put teachers that use the word gay into jail for a week is outrageous. And so I said, well, if the word gay is going to be criminalized, then they can use a word that rhymes with gay as its substitute. My last name is pronounced Takei, which rhymes with gay. So I said, then when you need to use the word gay, just say the word Takei, like marching in a Takei pride parade. And then at Christmas time, you can sing, "Down we now are Takei battle." They're ridiculous, and they're so easy to lampoon, these Tennessee politicians. However, it passed the Senate, and now it's being debated in the lower house, and the governor, God knows what a Tennessee governor would do, but he could sign it. So we want to nip it in the bud before it does that. So we want to make fools, really absolute fools out of these Tennessee politicians, and ridicule them to death.
And it was them said that gay marriage is not only cool but legal. So that
I don't have a sash, but
you know what? I have like 3. Just don't tell my friends.
I'm a fan of all of your work and definitely with your work with LGBT rights. But actually, the one thing I tell any of my friends who are on Facebook is to start following George Takei because it'll be the best decision they make all year.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you. If all the posts you do, some of which are about, important issues, but many are just awesomely hilarious, if they are all ones like you do or someone else helps you also, and if they are yours, like how much time you spend on that and what's the process and everything, because there's a lot of posts and they're all really good.
Well, the thing is, I have so many wonderful, funny people who send me cartoons and jokes and ideas. So we get to pick and choose from the wonderful ideas that we get, or cartoons that we get sent, or photos that we get sent. And Brad and I were doing it, but now it's become a tsunami of suggestions and submissions from people. So we've had to take on a couple of interns to help us as well. But what we do is we stockpile them and we put them out in drips and drabs daily. And so some days, we're here in Seattle, the ones that we've stockpiled are what's being put out in drips and drabs. So it creates the illusion that we are working hard, putting in 10 hours a day, every day, and I'm sorry that I have to shatter that illusion.
I have a quick question for you, George, and that is, you have become one of, and boy, you are a brilliant strategist, or just the luckiest guy in the world, one of the two. And in this business, it's best to be both. But I'm of the impression, if you listen to my voice, I can do no impressions. People, much like you said, somebody recognized my voice. I can yell for my wife or one of my kids, and I can hear somebody in aisle 12 go, I think I just heard Danny Bonaducci. But the other day, I was kidding around, and I said, oh, Mom. And everybody went, hey, that's George Takei. That's George Takei. So apparently I can do one impression, and it's you. And the question is, did you even start that, or did somebody else start that about you, and you picked it up, the oh my?
I've been saying "oh my" all my life, you know. And when I started appearing on the Howard Stern show, occasionally, you know, he would say some outrageous things. Howard saying outrageous things. Imagine that. And the only way you could respond to those statements were, "oh my." And he had it on tape. And so even when I'm not there, he plays it. He says something outrageous, and he presses the button, and it plays, "oh my." And so Howard Stern is the man who made it my signature, not me. I just say it all the time. But he's the one that made it a broadcast phenomenon.
I guess that you and I both have something in common. We both have to thank Howard Stern a little bit for helping out in our careers. A very good friend of mine. Even though for a while we were competitors, I never once didn't say thank you to the guy that got the ball rolling. And as long as you're gracious, he's a pretty cool guy to deal with, isn't he? Cool. A question over here for Mr. Takei.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you have some really fantastic branding. I don't know a lot of people that would spurn this room to be filled, and some of my friends are actually walking around with a Takei Pride Parade banner, actually. I'm just going to say, you've done some endorsements before, like Touch of Color televisions. Do you get approached for a lot of promotions? Are there any that you turn down?
There are many that we turn down, but one that has been very successful and remunerative, I did 2 years ago. It's called Sharp Television. And if you saw that, I borrowed from Howard Stern, and it ends when I see this picture of Sharp's Quattro on TV. I am amazed, astounded, and blown away, and I say, "oh my."
Can we look forward to any more Star Trek movies in the future?
As a matter of fact, as we speak, they are filming right now. I think they're into their 3rd month of filming. And that Star Trek movie, the 12th Star Trek movie, will be released in May of 2013. Have to wait another year.
Another year. And
Have you ever been approached about making a cameo in any of these, or would you like to?
The cameo in that movie?
In the new ones that are coming out?
Well, Leonard made a cameo in the first one, and I thought they would include the still living one of us in the subsequent ones, but I think they made a policy decision. They're going to try to get away from that confusion and the story track, you know, of bringing an old ancient Spock back. And so they don't have any cameos from any of us in the next one. And from what I understand, should there be another J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, it will be without any of us.
well, I must say, on my personal feelings, I believe that's a mistaken judgment. But a lot of people would come up and
I
say,
think you should be the producer of the next
Say,
one.
I'm not saying that because you're sitting right there, although it helps.
Of course you are saying that.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm a fan. I bet a bunch of people come up to you all the time and say, Lieutenant Sewell, and if I'm not mistaken, you were promoted to captain in 1993, were you not?
The only one of the regular cast who got a promotion to his own captaincy on his own ship that is bigger than the Enterprise.
On this side of the room.
Mr. Takei, first off, I'd like to say Baba Booey to you all.
Oh, thank you.
And,
I'll go right back to you.
Thanks, sir. Two questions. One, can you say dry oatmeal and musculature?